Hello, my name is Chad Zelmer, and for today we're going to talk about food neophobia. So, what exactly is food neophobia? Well, we all know what a phobia is. It's the fear of being afraid of something, right? Whether it's being afraid of like insects or being afraid of, um, some people are afraid of death. Different things in our life cause us to have phobias. What food neophobia is the fear of trying something new. I personally struggle with food neophobia. And before we took this class, I really had no idea that food neophobia was a thing. I always thought that I was crazy, that I didn't want to have the diet that I have. And I never fully understood why I have the diet I have. Because I try to be different. I try to want to try new foods. But I've always had this fear that I could never do it. And as much as something has looked tempting to me or looked good to me, I have never been able to actually push myself to try something new. And those that are around me don't seem to understand that I struggle with this. It's something personally to me that I wish I could change about who I am as a person because I do not like my eating habits. And then when we took this class, I learned that it was a real thing called food neophobia, and I instantly went, wow, okay, I'm not crazy. This is actually a thing, and there's more people out there that struggle with it. So, again, food neophobia is the fear of trying new foods to the point to where you cannot try new foods. It's usually more common in children. Children are a little bit fussier with their diets when they're young. They don't really want to try new things, but it can extend into adulthood. Now, at some point, I would like to believe that everybody has a food neophobia of some sort. Have you ever been asked to try something and you just didn't have an interest or just didn't want to because of what it was? That is a sort of food neophobia, only in a less dramatic way. So, what causes it? That's a great question. It can be caused by people being forced as being younger to eat foods that they didn't like, um, and that fear of the new food stuck with them. They were never able to fully shake the fact that they were forced to try something they didn't like or forced to eat it. And maybe it was something that was given to them over and over again, and every time they didn't like it. For children, usually what causes it is just that something doesn't look or smell appetizing to them, and therefore they have no interest in wanting to try it. Okay? But in adults, it can be hereditary. Um, it can be something psychological. Um, they don't fully know what causes it. However, I can tell you from my personal experience that I do believe that it was caused when I was in my childhood because I was kind of a picky eater back then. But I would be forced by my parents, and not in a bad way, but I would be forced by my parents to eat foods I didn't like. And as I grew up, I never developed an interest in trying those foods again. And now it's at that point where I can't get myself to try those foods again. Certain things just sound disgusting to me. For an example, one thing that I would love to be interested in eating is fruits, and I don't eat any of them. I don't know if it's a texture thing, I don't know if it's a fear thing, but I cannot draw myself into eating fruits. I do eat vegetables, which they do say fruits and vegetables are the number one things that is associated with food neophobia. However, I also don't believe that I have it as bad as other people have. So, let's talk about what kind of diet a person with food neophobia has. Typically, their diet is very simple, bland food. It's going to be plain. It might be spiced up to make it taste differently, but it's not going to be anything extreme. It's going to be more of like a chicken nugget, pastas, fries, hash browns, bacon, eggs, that sort of thing. Something that's very basic that you would expect a child to eat. Okay, but when it comes to fruits, typically a food neophobia does not like to eat fruits. So then, with that being said, what's the treatment for it? I personally got so upset with how I was feeling with my diet that I looked up calling a food hypnosis to see if they could possibly trick me into thinking or being, hypnotized um, to actually want to try different foods. And much to my surprise, they said that they could not hypnotize me, that that's not how it works. What they do is they work to help program your mind back into being willing to try foods, but it's not through a way of hypnosis. It's actually more of training your mind. An example of what I found research wise kept saying um, repeated exposure to a food, trying something different, the same food cooked differently. Maybe you make the food instead of somebody else make it so that you can get more of an understanding as to what your taste would enjoy in that food. They also say that dietitians help out with food neophobia. If a person has a specific diet, a dietitian can help them eat healthier within that diet or find ways of maybe adding things to the food that normally people wouldn't think about doing with food neophobia, but that would help them get those nutrients, but not in necessarily a direct way. Like an example might be instead of using a full mushroom, chopping up a mushroom very, very small and maybe frying it or adding seasonings to it, grinding it up. A way of getting you still introduced to the food, but not in a way that makes you uncomfortable. Okay, so again, I suffer from food neophobia. I've found that it's very embarrassing. It's very hard to want to eat around groups of people or someone I don't know. Um, and it's something that I continue to look at how to change. And by doing the research that I did for this paper, I feel like I have a better understanding as to a direction moving forward. Now, I do have to understand, and does everybody else, that not you're not gonna like every food regardless. You're gonna have your likes and your dislikes, and that's okay. But it still is worth a shot to try and work on getting healthier nutrients in my diet and finding ways that I'm comfortable with. And I do think that maybe trying to repeat exposure is a way that I might be able to do so. Um, I don't feel like I need to go to a nutritionist. And again, the therapist, the way that they were talking, I don't think that's necessarily the route to go for me. But I think the most important thing for people to recognize that are with people who have this is to be compassionate, be understanding. This is not something that people want to have, but it is hard for those people that do have it. It's just as hard for me not to eat something as it is frustrating for people around me to not understand why I don't eat it because I can't explain to them that I have a fear of this food. I have a fear that I'm not going to like it, and because I'm not going to like it, I just won't try it. And that is mainly what food neophobia is differently from other eating disorders. Food neophobia, they don't accept the food. It's not that they try the food and then reject it. we reject it when it's served to us. We just will not eat the food. So again, if you run into someone who has a very strict diet or a very picky eater, try and be compassionate. Try and understand that they don't want to necessarily be that way, but they have a fear of being different. I really enjoyed this class. I hope you all have a great holiday. Thank you.